Hello there.
General Kenobi!
Greetings, brothers. For those of you who don't know who I am, I'm Matt Lopez, the Deputy Province Governor for Province 22, West Coast, Best Coast. As an executive team, we decided that, despite all of the coronavirus quarantine restrictions, we thought it would be best to keep things as normal as possible. So we're doing the Symposium series to, give you guys some content and things to consider and plan for while we have this time at home. So I'm your first presenter. Funny fact, I actually already recorded this and was trying to upload it for days. It was supposed to be uploaded Saturday. It's now Wednesday I'm recording this. Hopefully we'll have it uploaded tonight. Technical difficulties, apologies. So this is round 2 of me spieling this information. But we're going to talk about culture of a chapter. And the reason why we're going to talk about that is because I had multiple conversations these last few months before all of this happened with some members of Province 22 about culture of a chapter, changing the culture of a chapter, how to address things, all of it. So I figured it would be just a good idea for everyone to sort of be on the same page with this. So to start off, we'll go over the definition of a chapter. Definition of culture. So the definition is the customs, arts, social institutions, and achievements of a particular nation, people, or other social group. We obviously fall into that very last category of social group. This basically means that we have things in common being in this group that tie us all together, and that's the culture of Phi Alpha. Another reason why I kind of want to, address culture is because it is a neutral thing. It's a neutral idea. Culture is what it is, but there can be bad and good parts of a culture. And I want all of us to start thinking about some of those bad parts of our chapter cultures and how we can start creating more good parts. So in the last video, I did a phone interview with Dennis Feinland, and I'm not sure if that'll get edited in or not. If so, you'll see it right now. If not, I'm going to go over what we talked about anyway. So I asked Dennis 3 questions. So the first question, what is culture? Dennis's explanation, which I really liked, addressed. The one thing I took away from it was that it's an agreed upon thing that everyone in the group understands. And that agreed upon part can be verbal. You can actually talk about it, establish it verbally. Or it can be a nonverbal thing that everyone just has an understanding of. You don't have to talk about it. It's obvious. Okay. Second question, why should you change it? Why should you change culture at all? And Dennis's thing, which makes a lot of sense, is that people in a group change over time, especially within your guys' chapters. I always say that chapter is a revolving door. Symphonians come in as probationary members, they come out as alumni, and the chapters will change. Your chapter will change. And it's important to understand that the culture sometimes has to change with those people. So that's something Dennis pointed out, which I think is really smart. And then the next thing is, how do you know when culture needs to be changed? And the one word that Dennis used was patterns. When you start seeing patterns of things that are less desirable, more negative, that's a good indicator that some things need to change across the board. Dennis talked about, how do I word this?
5 hours later.
So Dennis talked about when members start feeling like they're uncomfortable or they have to put on a front or a face in relation to doing things related to Phi Mu Alpha. By the way, a lot of this stuff can apply to different things, not just Phi Mu Alpha, which is why I'm also talking about it, because you can cut paste some of this stuff elsewhere. But when you start feeling like your members are faking the effort, then that might be an indicator that things need to change. Okay, so then asked Dennis about tips for changing culture. Few ones: lead by example. He talked about leadership versus management, which is something that I have presented on. And if you guys went to Privince last year, pretty sure that's what I addressed. So lead by example. If you want something to change, you got to do it yourself. Others will follow suit, especially if you are a designated leader. You're all leaders. That's what Symphonians are. You're a leader regardless. But if you're a chapter officer per se, then you just got to do it first, and everyone will follow eventually. And then the other thing he talked about was addressing things and observing things objectively. So when you're looking at the members of the group, objectively identifying what things that are being done that are good and what things that are being done that are bad or wrong. For example, if someone's not showing up to meeting, that's obviously, a lack of responsibility. So that has to be addressed. And the objective part is it doesn't have to be personal. If you're asking someone, hey, I noticed you're not showing up to meeting, why? You don't know what they're going to say. And they might have needed you to ask that. So address things. A lot of times I feel like we're scared to address things because things get personal and people's feelings get hurt. We got to learn to eliminate that, which goes into my next point, which is eliminating ego. And Dennis talks about this a little bit. So this quote that I have in this book is, it's wooden. It's, failure is not fatal, but failure to change might be. Okay? So from another book, Mark Manson's book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, excuse my language, he gives you 3 questions to ask yourself regarding change. Okay? The first one is, what if I am wrong? That's it. What would happen if I was wrong? Okay? Second one is, what would it mean if I were wrong? Like, in the grand scheme of everything, is you being wrong like a really important thing or not? Number 3, would being wrong create a better or worse problem than my current problem, not only for myself, but for others as well? So now we're starting to look at the you versus the group, the individual versus the group, and maybe you being wrong is, what's holding everyone back. And if you learn to change those things, then everyone benefits. Okay? The next thing that I'm pulling from the book Wooden is his lug nut analogy, or his analogy of a car. And this is just my way of saying that everyone matters. So if you have 3 really great tires on a car, but the 4th one is a flat tire, doesn't matter. You're not going anywhere. It's just, you're not going to get very far, at least. Let's say you have 4 great tires, but the lug nuts are gone. The tire's going to fall off. The wheel's going to fall off the car. So you have to have all of those lug nuts as well as the tires to succeed. And that's just my way of saying that every part of a car is important. That's why it's there. You could even be a driver and in the car, doesn't matter if the car's not working. So everyone's important, all right? Next, this is the part that is really important to me. Identifying how and where culture happens and how it progresses and how to change certain parts. Okay, so the first thing we're going to talk about is behavior. And by behavior, I mean like the act of doing something. So for example, let's go back to that idea of someone not showing up to meeting. Let's say a brother doesn't show up to meeting once. That's one behavior, okay? That is a singular behavior. That person did not show up to meeting. Let's say they didn't follow the proper procedures. They didn't let anyone know. They just no show, okay? Well, that's a behavior, all right? It's a singular thing. Then after that, we have habit, all right? And a habit would be if that person continually misses meeting. So they're just not showing up week after week. That's a built-in habit now, all right? Then from there, if multiple members start doing what that one member is doing, then it's starting to build into the culture that we miss meetings, okay? Sorry to call out KO. That's just where I'm from and whatever. We have this thing called KO time where we're lax about everything. We show up kind of on time. You can show up at 8-ish. You know what I mean? That's been the culture of KO for a while. And I make fun of it now because it's ridiculous. Doesn't matter if we live at the beach. Beach time is a no-go, okay? So culture of Phi Mu Alpha is already established, all right? There's governing documents, the rituals, the whole process. It's all written down, and you guys don't have to decide any of that. It's already decided. You just sort of follow the way things are. But the culture of a chapter has to be defined and redefined, okay? So something like KO time is not a good thing. You want to check it and start improving upon it, all right? Next, along the lines is how to prioritize. Because I bet if I asked you guys, you would all create a laundry list of things in your chapter that need to be changed. We can't change everything all at once. And some of those things are your opinion and not actually necessary. So we have to learn to prioritize, all right? So the way the priorities are going to work is you're going to go required, the things that are required, and then last on the list is going to be enjoyment. Bear with me. I know some of you might disagree with me on this. Sorry. So for example, I'm going to use workshop as an example. Province workshop is a required thing that has to happen. And you guys have to be present, and those are the requirements. We elect officers. Those are the things that have to happen. So holding workshop is the biggest priority. We just need to hold it, and people need to come. That's the biggest priority. Next on that list is content. What information, what resources, what are the things are we going to provide you guys during workshop? That's usually where we spend most of our time because we're really good about having workshop every year. But content would be that next level down. Then the next level after that, I would say, would be sociability. All right. How we're going to make things fun. How are we going to get people to get to know each other? Which, I think last year was a great start to that. And this year there was more things planned, different stuff. But we have to deal with the cards we're dealt. So the enjoyment part is last. I know it's not the funnest thing, but that's just how things have to go. So in your chapters, at the officer level or chapter level, you want to make sure all of those required things like chapter report, dues, all of those have to be done, all right? For the individual, that's all of you, responsibilities and membership. This is probably my biggest gripe, is that not all of the Symphonians in Province 22 follow or uphold their responsibilities and membership. I'm calling you guys out. You guys have to be very familiar with those, and you guys have to follow them. Those are like the baseline of what a Symphonian is. Then you can build upon that. Okay? So that is the responsibilities and membership is your first priority. Next level kind of stems off into two different things. I would say brotherhood and business. And they're equally important, and you have to be able to address both. Okay. Now I'm going to go into something a little more specific relating to officers. So, let's just talk about President and FEO. Easy. Everyone knows who they are. Everyone has a general idea of what those positions do. And I focus on these a lot because, in my opinion, they are the bread and butter of the chapter. So the president, I believe, is responsible for the culture of the chapter and identifying need for change and choosing directions to go to. Okay, the FEO, on the other hand, is in charge of the culture of the fraternity and instilling future generations with any changes. Okay, so the president you can think of as the present, and the FEO you can think of as the past, and together they help create the future. So you need both to be working very well. Okay, so remember that, guys. If you guys want to change culture, the president needs to identify it, and the FEO has to help instill that in the newer members. The current members have to be willing to do those changes themselves. That's just how it goes. All right. Next thing I want to bring up is this analogy I heard for the first time last week, and it's the boiling frog analogy. And this is for any leadership at all ever. The boiling frog analogy basically says if you're going to boil a frog, you don't boil the water and then put the frog in the boiling water because it'll just hop right out. So what you do is you put the frog in regular room temperature water and slowly rise the temperature. And the frog will never realize that it's being done. All right. And the frog is not a member. The frog is the habit or culture, all right, that you want to change. Okay, so basically, don't change things too quickly. That's a recipe for disaster. And don't try, this is a big one, don't try to change too many things at once. I don't know how many times I've seen a president, FEO, whoever, take over a position and say, I'm going to change this and this and this and this and this, and no, you're not. All you're going to do is create frustration and chaos, all right? Choose one thing, maybe one thing a semester to improve, all right? And whatever you choose, do your best to make sure that that thing is not based on the past officer that held that position. So if I'm the newly elected president, I'm not going to make my decisions based off of the old president, because what all that does, and this is what I call it, is it swings the pendulum back and forth between extremisms. So I'm not going to care about attendance at all. Goes straight to attendance is everything. Goes back to I'm going to get more relaxed on attendance. And it never goes anywhere because it's just constantly swinging back and forth. All right? So if you're going to pick something, just pick it because you think it needs to be improved on. Don't worry about whoever did what, okay? This quote that I have is from Coaching Conversations by Brian Souza. If you want to get better at leading groups, read that book. The quote reads, "The probability of a plan succeeding is in direct proportion to its simplicity. Don't get fancy." I just say this as keep it simple. So don't create an elaborate, if you're a newly elected FEO, don't create a new, completely different, elaborate process for your probationary members. Because you don't know what's going to work and what's going to fail. And if the majority of it fails, that's it. But if you take all of the stuff that you know has worked in the past and you just change one thing, then you've improved. And then the next time, the next class, whatever semester, quarter you're on, you do the same thing. So then you've improved two things. That's just how it works. And you guys have to learn to be patient with change of culture, or change of anything, honestly. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen in a week. It's not going to even happen in a semester, sorry. You can have an influence, but that change takes a long time. All right. So lastly, I have tips for habits. And these are just simple tips that you can apply not only to the chapter, but as yourselves as individuals. All right. So if you're going to, if you want new habits, if you want good new habits, make them simple, like I just said. So 60 seconds or less. How can you make a habit stupid proof? Excuse the expression. So that way it's easy to do, you're doing it, and then it just creates a habit over time. All right, the next thing is if you need to get rid of a bad habit, then you have to replace it with a good habit. So let's say you have a habit of snacking at night. I know this is really random, but if you have a habit of snacking late night, maybe instead of eating whatever junk food you would eat, drink water instead, because you're probably more thirsty than you are hungry, to be honest. Okay, so that's replacing a bad habit with a good one. So you're staying hydrated instead of snacking. Okay. Third thing, and I have mixed feelings about this, but is having a contingency plan. So with big life goals, I kind of don't believe in contingency plans. If any of you know Casey Neistat, he says that having a plan B is automatically setting plan A up to fail. So for big life things like what I want to do with my career, there's only like the things I want to do. There's no backup, because if I create that backup, then I'm just giving up on the first thing. But in a group of individuals like Phi Mu Alpha, like your chapters, it's a great idea to have contingency plans for things. Not necessarily for people, but for things. So for example, we're going to have our Mills Music Mission at this senior citizen home. Great. Coronavirus happens, you can't anymore. So what else do you do? Well, like most other things, we're going virtual. So why don't you hold a Facebook Live or Instagram Live concert instead and just broadcast it to whoever wants to listen? It's still a Mills Music Mission. It's just modified, a little different. All right. So that's the gist of culture of a chapter, how to change it, how to address it. If you guys have any questions, please ask them. If you have any comments, comment away. Like I said, I know some of you won't agree with everything I say. That's fine. Thanks to Dennis Feinland for his input, whether or not he's in this video. You guys can also reach out to him and talk to him about things. He's brilliant. He is... the reason why I used Dennis was because when Dennis became president a few years after me, I was his ARO, and Dennis wanted to change some things, the culture of the chapter. And I remember being very hesitant to do it because it just sounded different. And a lot of the stuff he ended up doing made sense the way he went about it. You know, he's talked about how that wasn't the best thing, but the need for change was there. And Dennis is one of the boys that encouraged the workshop, Province workshop name to be changed to Symposium. And that's a cultural change. He wanted the perception and whatever workshop is about to be accurate. And he felt like workshop just felt too sterile and work oriented. And so they felt Symposium better reflected what we do. And that's a cultural change. And that's why I asked Dennis to be a part of this, because he was one of the ones that helped teach me about this topic. Okay. So feel free to ask him any questions, obviously. Sorry for the video being late. Hope you guys learned some things. Stay safe. Don't do anything crazy. Stay busy at home. Clean, reorganize, get some hobbies going. I have plants, those are part of my hobbies. Practice music, hello, we're a culture of musicians, that's what we are. We're a fraternity, but we're a culture of musicians. Alright? More music making. Make that the culture. Alright, see you guys.